For the first time ever, the average price for a pound of ground beef is more than $6. That is up 11% from a year ago.
Hamburger America's beef supplier stopped absorbing the increase and has raised its prices by 9%.
Have you noticed that the price of a burger is getting dangerously close to luxury status? It sounds like a joke, but it is happening across America. Beef prices have doubled in less than a year, while ranches collapse under droughts, labor shortages, and skyrocketing feed costs. The result? Burger chains that once promised cheap, fast, and filling meals are now trapped in a nightmare, fewer customers, declining quality, and even accusations of mixing in questionable meat. In this video, we will dive into 6 major burger chains in the United States that are struggling as consumers lose trust and ingredient prices keep climbing without pause. This is not just a story about fast food. It is a warning about a quiet crisis eating away at America right from its kitchens. Number 1, McDonald's. Do you remember the last time you walked into a McDonald's without letting out a sigh? That combo meal that once felt like comfort at the end of the day now makes people hesitate. A Big Mac meal that used to cost $6 is now more than $12 in many places. At first, that might sound reasonable since everything else has gone up. But then McDonald's announced the return of the under $5 combo. Instead of celebrating, people started to wonder, how can they pull that off? What are they cutting to keep the price? And is the beef still real beef? While many other brands chose to raise prices, McDonald's tried to hold on to customers by keeping prices low. But that has sparked anger from franchise owners. In Ohio, one operator told a local newspaper flat out that he could not keep selling burgers below cost when beef prices had nearly doubled. Consumers also sensed something was off. Patties looked thinner, the cheese seemed skimpier, and the lettuce was sparse. Many began asking if beef really is over $6 a pound, as reported by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. How can McDonald's keep prices so low and still turn a profit? It all traces back to a supply chain under strain. Since early 2024, severe droughts in states like Texas and Kansas forced many small cattle farms to shut down. Feed costs went up, water ran short, and labor was scarce. America's cattle herd has dropped to its lowest level since 1951. The result is beef becoming scarce, and that shortage is showing up in every burger. What frustrates customers even more is the sense of being misled. McDonald's never openly admits to changing recipes, yet people can feel the difference. Burgers cool down faster now the bun outweighs the meat, and I just don't want to go back anymore, one user wrote on a Texas consumer forum. Another, a 68-year-old man, posted, "I used to love McDonald's. Now every time I visit, I feel cheated." Comments like these are no longer isolated. They have turned into an undercurrent among people who once saw McDonald's as part of their childhood. In the second quarter of 2025, McDonald's reported a slight revenue increase in the U.S. thanks to its budget campaign, but profits shrank. That means customers may be returning, but they are not spending the way they used to. Even worse, franchise owners, the ones actually running the stores, are losing money just to maintain the image of affordable food for everyone. If this continues, McDonald's could face a quiet wave of closures within its own system. The real fear is not just higher prices, but broken trust. In the past, McDonald's was a place where you knew what you were paying for. It was not fancy, but you got exactly the value you expected. Now everything feels uncertain. Is the burger still real beef? Are the sizes the same? Do the discounts actually benefit customers, or are they just a way to push weaker meals onto the market? Consumers are not asking for a 5-star burger. They just want to know their trust is not being swapped out for cheaper shortcuts. But right now, McDonald's is leaving many people wondering, is the meal in their hands still worthy of the memories they once had? And is it still worth believing in a name that used to be the symbol of American fast food? Have you felt the same way eating McDonald's recently? Share your thoughts and experiences below so we can all take a closer look at whether McDonald's is still America's meal or just a relic of another time. Number 2, Wendy's. Wendy's built its entire brand around one clear promise: fresh, never frozen. But in today's crisis, that very promise has become their biggest burden. Because if you once believed Wendy's was the place for truly fresh beef, you are now faced with a troubling question: why does that burger smell off? You do not need a lab report or academic study to notice it. A simple trip through a few Wendy's locations in western states like Nevada, Arizona, or Oregon will tell you plenty. Customers describe the beef as slightly sour, a bit gamey, even like meat that sat overnight and then got shoved back in the fridge. Fresh beef should not smell at all right. But as the domestic beef supply collapses and the supply chain breaks down, the impossible is starting to show up at Wendy's. In 2025, America is facing the largest beef shortage in more than 70 years. The cattle herd has dropped sharply. Farms in the Midwest have shut down due to rising feed costs, soaring water bills, and climate shifts that keep grass from growing. In this situation, Wendy's, the chain that always tried to be different, is forced to choose between keeping its promise or adapting to reality. And the truth is, no one can keep a promise if the ingredients to honor it no longer exist. Some say Wendy's has begun importing beef from Mexico or Canada to fill the gap. That is not illegal, but it does shatter the experience American customers once trusted. You used to believe that patty was ground and pressed from American beef within a few days. Now you have to accept that it may have been packaged, shipped, chilled, and sitting on a shelf for weeks before it reached your tray. A consumer survey in Minnesota found that more than 52% of diners over age 50 felt Wendy's burgers were not the same anymore. What disappointed them most was not the price, but the loss of honesty and quality. That is where middle-aged consumers differ from younger ones. They are less swayed by slogans and more attuned to changes through taste and lived experience. That is why Wendy's is losing the very group of customers who were once its most loyal. Wendy's was once praised as the burger chain with real flavor in a sea of industrial brands. But now that reputation is turning against them. Because when the beef no longer tastes sweet, when juices no longer linger in a bite, and when the flavor carries a faint freezer burn, the people who loved Wendy's most are also the first to walk away. The deeper the love, the deeper the disappointment. What stands out is that Wendy's has not officially announced any changes to its recipe or sourcing. Yet subtle shifts like quicker cook times, burgers with uneven coloring, and even faster delivery than before give customers the sense that the life cycle of each meal has been shortened. Not because Wendy's got better at efficiency, but because they are scrambling to cope with an internal crisis. Do you remember the last time you had Wendy's? Did you notice anything different? This is not just about taste. It is the quiet transformation of a brand people once trusted. The danger is that these changes are never stated, never printed on a wrapper, and never explained. You only realize it after that first bite when something just does not feel right. Share your thoughts if you have felt that Wendy's is no longer what it once promised. Because in the beef crisis of 2025, the only thing truly frozen may be trust. And sometimes the chill of doubt sets in faster than any freezer ever could. Number 3, Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box was once known for variety and flexible pricing. For many workers in states like Arizona, Nevada, and Texas, it was the go-to stop after a long shift. But while other burger chains wrestle openly with soaring beef costs, Jack in the Box has chosen to stay quiet and adjust. And that silence is leaving customers more uneasy than ever. Unlike McDonald's or Wendy's, Jack in the Box never promised fresh beef or 100% American beef. They did not push hard on quality slogans either. But in an industry where everyone is struggling, staying silent is not a safe strategy. It is the very thing that makes you look suspicious. Sharp-eyed customers have started posting on Reddit and other forums that burgers at Jack in the Box lately taste cold, even when freshly bought. Not cold in temperature, but as if the meat had been cooked hours earlier and simply reheated. Others describe the beef as having a powdery or off taste hard to pin down. What is strange is that these complaints are not coming from anti-fast food critics, but from loyal customers who used to eat at Jack in the Box every week. At the same time, another detail is catching attention. The burger menu is quietly shrinking. Some fan favorites are disappearing with no explanation. When asked, employees usually give vague answers like temporarily discontinued or supply chain adjustments. That only adds to the feeling that the chain is quietly struggling through the beef crisis while trying not to let customers notice. And the pressure is real. According to a Q2 2025 food industry market report, frozen beef suppliers are struggling to maintain inventory that meets standards. This has forced many chains to shorten quality checks, cut storage times, and in some cases use blended ingredients like high-moisture ground beef to stretch weight. For a chain like Jack in the Box, whose customer base is largely lower to middle income, any changes in ingredients have to be subtle to avoid backlash. But American consumers, especially those over 45, are not easily fooled. They have experience, they remember flavors, and they are quietly pulling back. The drop in visits to Jack in the Box is not making headlines, but it is a telling sign if you look closely. It is the natural response of a customer base that senses something is wrong. No one is standing up to protest, but together they are walking away. Have you ever bitten into a burger and felt that something was just off? Not bad enough to complain, but enough to keep you from going back. If so, you may be experiencing the same thing thousands of other Americans are feeling with Jack in the Box. Share your thoughts if you have noticed a change in the food there, even a small one. Because while beef prices climb, cattle herds shrink, and faith in fast food keeps slipping, it is those small, nameless details that ultimately make people step out the door and never return. Number 4. Checkers and Rallies. Something strange is happening at many Checkers and Rallies locations. The burgers look tempting on the ads, but by the time they reach the customer, they carry almost no sense of authenticity. The buns are still neatly pressed, the sauce still bold, the vegetables still arranged in order, but the patty, the very heart of it all, sparks more doubt than excitement. Plenty of diners have described the flavor as bland, oddly off, or watery without soaking into the bun like before. Some have even wondered if the burgers were sprayed with artificial meat flavoring. It sounds bizarre, but it is not impossible. In recent years, the fast food industry has turned more and more to synthetic flavor enhancers to mimic that grilled, seared, or charbroiled taste, especially as the cost of real beef spirals out of control. Checkers and Rallies was never a name tied to luxury, but it once earned respect for bold flavor, the kind of cheap but real experience that stuck with people. Yet in 2025, with beef prices climbing more than 35%, the chain chose not to raise prices, but to quietly make the portions work. That compromise is now leaving longtime customers, especially older diners, with steady tastes and sharp flavor memories feeling betrayed. The problem is that this group cannot be fooled easily. They do not eat only for fullness. They eat for routine, for memory, for familiarity. When the taste changes, they are the first to notice. And they do not need an ingredient list or a report to tell them. One bite is enough. A longtime customer in Florida wrote on a local review site, "I've eaten this for 15 years. The last time I had to spit out the first bite because the smell was so off." Another in Louisiana wrote, "The burger is still big, but it feels artificially big. I didn't feel full, just heavy." The issues do not stop at flavor. Checkers and Rallies has also been hit with complaints about food handling. Since the start of the year, customers have reported burgers served not hot wilted lettuce, and in some cases, employees caught on video using the same gloves to handle cash and then wrap food. No major scandal has exploded yet, but the growing frequency of these reports is a clear signal of a system stretched to its limits. At McDonald's, the problem is a quiet letdown. At Wendy's, it is the shock of breaking a promise. At Checkers and Rallies, it is a different kind of disappointment, the kind where you cannot pinpoint exactly how you were mistreated, but you leave with the feeling you just ate something you should not have. And when that feeling repeats itself a second or third time, customers do not switch chains. They abandon the habit of eating out altogether. In communities of older adults, people with health conditions, or those cooking at home to control nutrition, Checkers and Rallies is no longer talked about as a tasty and convenient option. Instead, they worry about what lurks in every meal. Does this burger have too much sodium? Is it made from reprocessed scraps? Is there some new preservative they have not been told about? And when questions like these grow louder, a brand that survived on unconditional customer acceptance is suddenly paying the price of silence. If you have eaten at Checkers and Rallies recently, think back. Did the flavor feel the same as a few years ago? Did it still deliver that authentic fast food taste, or just a shiny wrapper hiding a meal that no longer feels honest? If you have felt the same, share your thoughts. Because sometimes the people who pause to ask questions are the last defenders of real quality in a fast food world that keeps slipping further away. Number 5, Hardees. Back in the tough years of the early 2000s, Hardees was the place that held onto the trust of America's working class. A hearty thick burger full of flavor and easy on the wallet was a lifesaver for truck drivers, factory workers, and retirees eating alone. But by the summer of 2025, many of those same people have quietly crossed Hardees off their list of familiar stops. Not because they dislike it, but because they barely recognize the brand anymore. Hardees is going through a storm of change that the big media outlets hardly mention. In just the first quarter of this year, its parent company quietly shut down more than 100 locations, mostly in low-income states like West Virginia, Arkansas, and Mississippi. The official reason was restructuring and focusing on operational efficiency. To customers, it looked like something else, the slow disappearance of a place they once knew. Unlike McDonald's with its loud presence or Wendy's with its fresh beef promise, Hardees has survived quietly, thanks to a base of loyal customers, people fueled more by memories than by marketing. But when those same customers start saying the food has changed, that is a warning sign no one should ignore. For them, a burger was never just food. It was a way to measure whether a brand had stayed honest over the years. One of the biggest complaints is about the size and texture of the burgers. Thick burgers now look bigger than they really are because of thicker buns and patties pressed so flat they lose their shape. A customer in Kentucky put it bluntly, "It looks big, but when you bite in, it is all bread and sauce." Another person wrote on Facebook, "Never in my life have I seen the bun outweigh the meat like it does now. At the same time, wait times are climbing. Many locations report delays of 8 to 12 minutes, even for a basic burger, something that never used to happen." This is more than just sloppy operations. It shows a chain stretching prep time to deal with unstable supplies. A former employee admitted on Reddit, "We had to collect leftover meat scraps from the day before to make patties. Customers never noticed because we cooked them through again." But anyone with a good palate could tell. Labor shortages, higher storage costs, and shaky supply quality are all tearing down the old Hardees model of cheap but satisfying. They cannot win on marketing and they are losing on taste. When both of those slip away, middle-aged customers are choosing something simple, heading home to cook for themselves. This is no longer just Hardee's story. It is a shift in consumer behavior spreading quietly across the country. People who once survived the 2008 crash and leaned on fast food as a lifeline are now shutting the door on a place they once visited every morning on their way to work. Do you have a memory tied to Hardees? Did you ever pull off the highway just to grab a thick burger and keep going? If you went back today and felt like nothing was the same, you are not alone. Thousands of others are thinking the same thing. And that is the truth. Hardees has to face once middle-aged customers stop eating. No marketing campaign will ever bring them back. Number 6, Burger King. Burger King used to be the choice for anyone who wanted something a little different. The flame-grilled taste, the slogan, "Have it your way," and the big bold Whopper all stood as its own declaration in a sea of generic fast food. But by mid-2025, that image is cracking apart like an old mural left to peel and fade without anyone bothering to paint it over. The warning signs were already there last year, but now the fallout is impossible to ignore. The menu is stripped down, stores look half alive and half abandoned. Staffing is thin and the atmosphere feels drained. Worst of all, loyal customers are slipping away without even saying goodbye. Inside the company, a painful decision was made: cut costs by cutting back on fresh beef. The Whopper may carry the same name, but much of the supply now comes from mass-produced frozen beef, leaving the burger bland, uniform, and missing the fiery kick that once defined it. For anyone who remembers the Whopper of the 90s, this is no longer the same burger. Reports show Burger King locations across the Midwest and Southeast are seeing sales plummet. In states with large senior populations like Florida and Pennsylvania, the decline goes deeper than lost revenue. It feels like an entire generation of weekly regulars has quietly vanished. The problem isn't just the price. People are willing to pay more if the quality delivers. What drives customers away is the sense that the soul of the burger has been cut out. When the Whopper no longer tastes flame-grilled, when the lettuce is the kind that has been sitting in storage, when the beef patty feels dry and oddly spongy, customers may not know exactly what changed, but they know they are no longer being cared for. Negative reviews have been flooding Yelp and Google Maps this year, and the phrase that keeps repeating is "not gross or dirty, but not like it used to be." That hurts the most for a brand that once thrived on familiarity, nostalgia, and a flavor all its own. While competitors are either holding prices down or pushing for innovation, Burger King seems to be retreating in silence. The ad campaigns are dull, uninspired, and there's no serious effort to restore quality. To many, it feels like Burger King has already given up the fight. For consumers, especially those over 50, there's a sharp sense of being left behind. This was once the weekend treat, with the kids, the little indulgence in a week of tight spending. Now many are choosing somewhere else, or simply going home to make a sandwich instead of eating a Whopper that no longer tastes like a Whopper. If you ever had memories at Burger King sitting on the red-orange plastic chairs, while the smell of flame-grilled beef drifted from the kitchen, you know the disappointment. It's not just that the food is worse, it's that nobody cared enough to keep it the way it was. Would you still go back to Burger King, or have you already walked away just like thousands of others are doing every day? If fast food doesn't feel like fast food anymore, you are not alone. 6 burger chains that once stood for convenience, low prices, and flavor are now struggling in the middle of a storm beef shortages, collapsing American ranches, and a crumbling trust between consumers and brands. What makes it worse is the silence. Not everyone has the option to give up burgers, but everyone has the right to know what they are eating and whether it's worth trusting. If you've ever felt disappointed, ever stopped halfway through your meal, or ever walked past a burger joint without looking twice, leave a comment, because consumer silence only makes things worse. We don't need fancy burgers. We just need honesty in something as simple as a piece of meat.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.